Welcome everybody to War Thunder Ground Forces. My name, as always, is Maxwell, and today I thought I'd take a look at the now open beta of the War Thunder Ground Forces and give you my first impressions and generally what my thoughts are on the game and the state it is in at the moment. One thing I will say is a lot of people are going to say, oh well, it's in beta, it's still in beta, so we can overlook some of the bugs, but I will remind people that War Thunder, the aeroplane combat for War Thunder is still technically classed as open beta, even though I think when you start accepting money for a game, like for purchasing of Golden Eagles or whatnot, you shouldn't really have any right to call a game open beta anymore. So this is probably going to sit in open beta for the rest of eternity, just like the aircraft. So take beta with a pinch of salt in this game, because what we're seeing is pretty much how it's going to be for the foreseeable future. So anyway, enough bashing on Gaijin's definition of beta and onto the game itself. One thing you may have noticed immediately is that it is bloody gorgeous looking. That is indeed absolutely true. Just a quick word though, some of the voices you may hear in the background, this was recorded, I was platooned up with pointy haired Jedi that you may have seen me play with on Circumflex's live stream in World of Tanks. And I'm just with those guys in TeamSpeak while we're all... Foch and Circon are also in the background, but they are just there in a different game. It's myself and Jedi playing on this one. So yeah, like I said, you may notice that the game itself is gorgeous. It looks absolutely beautiful. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to make too many comparisons between this and World of Tanks, because right off the bat I just want to say that they are two very, very different games. Yes, they're in the same genre, but they're almost two entirely different games. This one is a lot more simulator and a lot more, I wouldn't say realistic, but it's got a lot more realism than World of Tanks does. Because let's face it, a game that was realistic would be very, very boring to play. What people really want is realism, not realistic. So it's making the comparison between this and World of Tanks is kind of like making a comparison between Counter-Strike and Battlefield 3. I remember somebody making that argument before, and it stuck very well in my mind, because it's absolutely true. Although they're both FPS games, they're both very, very different, and the same is true with this. While they are both tank simulator style games, they're both very, very different. This one is a lot more focused on the simulator rather than the arcade style of things. So, we've gotten over the gorgeousness. The game looks absolutely beautiful. The tank models are fantastic. The weathering effects on them beautiful. The terrain's fantastic, although we're on the beach at the moment, so there isn't much like vegetation and foliage to look at. So, we've praised the graphics enough. I think let's get on to the actual gameplay. One thing you may notice is there isn't a separate targeting reticule, so you don't have to sit and wait to aim at something. The little crosshairs that you have is where pretty much your shell is going to land. Accuracy on this is a lot less important. Well, not less important, but a lot less complicated. It's like where the crosshairs points, that's pretty much where your shell is going to land. But the other thing is the shells seem to have a slow travel time and quite a large arc, so you do have to compensate for height in this game rather than just forward and backwards momentum. So when you're aiming at something, if it's a distance away, you have to aim quite substantially higher than the target. But on arcade battles, that's what that little crosshair is for. It tells you where your shell is predicted to land and whether it's going to penetrate or not. You don't get that in realistic battles, but you do earn substantially more credits and experience in those battles.
Ammo explosion in the barrel is fucking
The other thing I would say is damage. The way this game works is you don't have hit points like other popular games. What you do is you just have a fully modelled tank, and say you get hit and your ammo rack goes, that is your tank destroyed. Say you get hit and your engine gets destroyed, that's your tank done. When you have enough modules or enough crew members knocked out, that is your tank pretty much done and it's game over. So you've got to be aware of that. You can I mean, that brings up a plus and a minus. Just there you can see how high I had to aim up to try and land a shot on that target I could see over there. Now that brings up some goods and some bad points for this game, I think, which is RNG. which is random number generator. It seems to be a lot more prevalent in this. It's like you can hit a tank and one-shot it, or you can just sit and take shot after shot after shot and not really seem to take too much damage. And that's not because of armor. Like, those shots will penetrate. Like when the thing flashes up and says hit, then you've done damage to that tank. It's not that the armor's turned it aside, because obviously you can understand that. You're firing a little 76mm cannon at 120mm of armor that's nicely sloped. It's not going to go through. As you saw there, I hit that guy once in the turret, and you saw quickly flash up on the right hand side how many modules I destroyed there, and that was pretty much the tank just completely, well, not pretty much, it was the tank completely knocked out after that. But the RNG seems a lot more prevalent in this. It's like you can land shot after shot after shot into somebody and really doesn't really seem to phase them whatsoever, and then you can hit somebody once in the side or even in the front and it just absolutely destroys them. So ammo racking is what you really need to go for in this game. Now the plus side of that is it's a lot more realistic. Like if you put a 90mm shell through the front of a tank, you'd expect it really just to fuck that tank up immediately, excuse my language. But yeah, if you put a 90mm shell through the front of a tank, you expect it to screw that tank up real bad. Whereas this will do that. Whereas in something like, say, World of Tanks, if you put a shell through a target over and over again, you're only going to do a certain amount of their hit points, whereas this doesn't have hit points modeled. Now that's the pluses for it, is just the realism and the immersion, is that it's a lot more how it would have been in real life. Now the downsides to that is it makes decision making a lot more difficult. It's like if you come up against another tank, you can't think to yourself, well, I've got this many hit points, I know he does around about this much alpha damage, so I should be able to survive a head on with him, or I should retreat and not take on this fight. You can't really do that in this, because even a tank that's a couple of tiers lower than you, if they get a lucky penetrating shot on your ammo rack, which seems to happen a lot, then it's game over for you. So we're just going to see some of that RNG in work at the end of this replay here, as this replay draws on to a close.
They meant the kings of the jungle.
So as you saw, I couldn't hurt that Stug earlier, but that wasn't because of bad RNG, that was just because of his fantastic armor rating. I wasn't able to get a shot through his armor whatsoever. Excuse me. One thing I will say about it is the physics isn't really fixed as of yet. You may have noticed my tank sliding around quite a lot, and it does really feel like they haven't quite perfected the feel that you're driving a sort of a 50-ton, 100-ton vehicle. It kind of feels like you're driving an inflatable tank on a bumper car track at the moment. Now, I know with the beta updates for the aircraft, they do bring out new flight models for aircraft very quickly. So that's something that I would expect to change rather quickly as time progresses, that they will remodel the tanks and get them working here. As you can see, some of that RNG at work, take out 2 tanks quickly there with 2 separate shots. So yeah, that's something I hope they address quickly, because at the moment it just doesn't feel like you're driving big, bulky, heavy tanks. It feels like you're driving sort of an inflatable tank that doesn't really have a weight or anything. Especially when you ram another tank, that can get absolutely ridiculous when you start flipping tanks over just because you're a funny wedge shape. So as you can see, I'm taking hit after hit from enemy tanks here, and excuse me, and nothing's really seeming to phase me, and that's just the RNG basis of it. The fact that they're putting shots into me, they probably should be doing damage, but not really landing the shots that they need to, whereas I'm just getting all of the luck here and just putting shots straight through the front of everybody's face. So I think I've just about covered everything that I wanted to cover for this game, which is just the how gorgeous it looks, the differences between it and World of Tanks, the differences between the hit point and module systems, what I think about it, the fact that I don't like the fact it's going to be an open beta for the next 4 years probably. As you can see, leading a target needs a little bit more practice in this, just because I think the shells travel, or at least seem to travel, a hell of a lot slower. than they really should. It seems like you're lobbing some kind of great mortar at the at your enemies. I'm just trying to take some cover here. So yeah, I think I've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover in this first impression. At the end of the day, the game is fun. I had a lot of fun playing it, so I'm probably going to continue playing it. Although I will say that I'm not going to be bringing a lot of War Thunder Ground Forces content myself. I'm still going to leave that up to Mully, who I think is doing a fantastic job of bringing War Thunder content at the moment. I might get in there and platoon up with him so that we can play some games together. Quickly, I do just want to mention one thing that really needs addressing in this game is the mini-map. It's absolute dog shit at the moment, as you can see. You can't make out anything at the size of it. So that's one thing that super needs addressing right now.
Check me out.
And we're back to what I was saying before. I'm going to be leaving War Thunder content still up to Mully because I think he's doing a fantastic job, but I may get in there and make some content with him so we can platoon up and take the tanks out for a drive together and do some group content. So that's going to be it for my War Thunder Ground Forces open beta first impressions. Hope you enjoyed the video. As you can see, the upgrade system is exactly the same as the planes, so if you understand the plane upgrade system, then you're going to understand the tank upgrade system. If you enjoyed the video, found it useful, informative, or you just liked it, then leave me a like and stick a comment in the comment section below. If you're not already, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, because there's going to be more War Thunder and tank content in general to come in the future. I have been Maxwell, this has been War Thunder, Open Beta Ground Forces, and I will catch you guys next time.